even a house past my place, like 25 feet. And the loading and unloading was on the west side, like it's shown in the far side. They offered by trees to go along the right on the front, discourage part of it, and what else to do. At the end, it was like an 11th hour agreement, which was, contingencies, we wouldn't say no. And after that, Mr. Barr dictated into a paper sheet. This is the agreement. We left, thought everything was fine. Got a call from Mr. Barr's attorney, Mr. Conan, and said they were a bit impatient to move forward and we got a draft of that agreement. We did. I went down and read it. There were 3 things I recall that we discussed. There was a mistake about that he had itemized things on the property immediately across the street that shouldn't be there. It said boats couldn't be stored, it should have said junk boats. The other thing was we had offered to buy oak trees and replace some bollards that had been earlier discussed. The oak trees were in there in that area, but bollards were also in there. And the other thing that I repeatedly heard about is the provision for maintenance of the fence on the west side of the trail. The provision that he had put in there was if the fence falls over after a certain period of time, it's not maintained after due notice, it's not maintained, we could send someone over to repair the fence. I told him at the time we could not send anyone on the forest property if for any other reason he hadn't shot. He said that he would wait to get Mr. Coon's comment and then make any changes necessary at one time. Fine. Mr. Barr started putting up the fence and we had another call from him. He said the Barr should run back out. And he couldn't be believed. He would talk to the Barrs and the next day he called back and said they should back out and we want to discuss it. And that's the extent of what I know. Mr. Barr had apparently angry because he keeps saying, I put something in the agreement. I didn't write it, I didn't put anything in it, and I didn't care if it was written on the back of an envelope. So I don't know what happened. If it was transmitted in some way by our attorney without making it clear it was a draft their attorney had asked for, I'd like to talk to it. But other than that, I don't know. But this is the transcript that Mr. Barr dictated. It's exactly as I told you. And at the end of it, it says, Mr. Conan, you and I will draft up the appropriate paperwork, and we'll do that in conjunction with Mr. Simpson. What I was told is that this agreement couldn't be finalized in any way until the attorneys agreed on it, meaning Conan and our attorney, and I would assume Mr. Boggs, and then it could change again when Mr. Simpson looked at it. So I didn't try to edit anything out of that. But at any rate, if that was a true misunderstanding, I hope we can get past it. If that's what's causing Mr. Barr to be angry, he's mistaken. I didn't put anything in that agreement. And as I said, as far as I'm concerned, we could have signed this document right here, and that would have been the end of it. Then, of course, things continued on. And a couple of permits were issued without documentation or appeal to the court. Another permit was issued without documentation. And rather than getting, and all of the zoning was still on field, rather than getting another stop work order on injunction, we sat down and developed this permit conditions that everybody saw in the last meeting. Sat down with the building official. The permit, the only 2 pieces of paper that was in permit were the face piece and the site plan showing the loading and unloading ones. It says that it will comply with all city ordinances. That's what permit conditions are the city ordinances. I sat down with the building official, we went through the ordinances, this is what it appeared to apply. Reviewed it with the building official, he signed off, reviewed it with the mayor, he signed off on the other parking signs. And based on that, we agreed to withdraw our appeal to the school board. I'm told that that's very probably enforceable. Again, it's not our intent to go to litigation, but I hope we can resolve this, because it's just been going on forever. We then had a meeting with Jim Simpson in December of last year. And in that meeting, again, we see what the ordinance required. We were assured that litigation would not be necessary. It had been mitigated enough. Discussed the fact that all of the activity west of that fence, forklifts, 18-wheelers, trucks loading, the access drive that was installed with the gate, it being used commercially for lawnmowers, trucks, and now the garbage truck. All of that is violation of ordinance, and we agreed that it would not be enforced until the old building was taken down because that was blocking access to the back where the loading and unloading was shown in the site plan. Well, 3 years ago, planning and zoning commission required that area west of the fence be cleaned up. Not not used commercially, and that garbage container that's sitting right away, a big commercial, should have been removed, and this was required 3 years ago. That garbage container was picked up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, wakes everybody in the house up. Daily, all day long, 18-wheelers, forklifts, lawnmower trailers bouncing in and out that access gate, the garbage truck, name it. If you think that's not a daily stress on everybody else in the household, then it's like, and I want Mr. Carr to understand that if we have to be taking additional litigation, it's because we don't have any alternative. You must understand that not only is that required by the ordinance, that is a huge nuisance. I'm told that you can recover damages in a nuisance suit, and this has been going on for years. That is not what we want to do. But what we do want is to correct the situation that can be easily done with Mr. Carr pointed to. And if he's angry about something, please put it on the table. If you're angry because I've taken the lead in this to try and get it resolved, I don't know, tell me. But I can tell you this is, I'm at the end of the road right now. We've discussed everything reasonable, all it would take, even at this point. Right now, that building in the back, where it was supposed to be the loading and unloading on the west side of the building, now that's been blocked off by privacy fence. So I don't know how that's loading and unloading. The building official told me he didn't care if they backed in there. The ordinances require the use of an alley. There's a 20-foot dedicated alley from Seal Avenue immediately back to this building behind the medical center. The only reason it can't be used is because there's a fence down there. The ordinances require, 18-wheelers are loaded in the street. Lawnmowers are run down the middle of the street, tested in front of motorcycles. We had agreed, there was one mistake in the mediation. We did not put a gate where that gate is right now on the west side of the fence. And the reason was concerned, it's not allowed by ordinance, but the reason was concerned that it would be used commercially, it would be contagious. Well, it is being used commercially nowadays, it's putting out the fact. But there should have been a gate there for personal use, to garden, to bring lawnmowers, because even though it, again, is a violation of the ordinance to test lawnmowers over there, we agreed that was okay. If it's done in a considerate way. Right now, they're driven down the street all day long, right in front of mother's house, noise, everything, at any rate, this could be easily resolved. We're not even asking for all the ordinances to be enforced. Just the minimum it takes to protect the residential property. That paving and parking in front of the building, right now what happens is a line of cars, Mr. Park had earlier said he couldn't control that. Most of it is his employees on the west side. There's a line of cars in the right of way, 7 feet wide and pavement 14. So it's an invitation. There's a line of cars in there, and the lawnmower trucks pull up behind it with trailers on them. And then lawnmowers are both sides of the street. Then an 18-wheeler will pull up on the little end street. And then lawnmowers are driven down the street. That is a public safety hazard. That alone. Okay? Again, if more discussion needs to be had about that, that's up to this board. But as far as liability for putting in, a few trees or a parking sign or some physical barrier in the right of way, that's nothing compared to the liability for running over someone looking at lawnmowers or driving down the street. I just mean there's a reasonable solution here, and I think it turns on whether anyone wants to do it. We don't want to go back to litigation, but if we're not given any choice, that's what we're going to do. And there's a wealth of information here to work with. And I want Mr. Carr to be aware that if we have to file a nuisance suit personally against him, that's not because we want to. It's because we weren't given any other choice. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know what else to do with this. So it's up to the board and it's up to Mr. Carr. But everything that was required to resolve this in 2006 is required by the ordinances. The old building created the problem because it was not, and the ordinances were in place then. I've heard it said that the far's been there a long time. My father bought 5 acres in an old house on Seal 50 years ago. 10 years after that, he opened the street and built a new home. This was farmland. That was a little lawnmower shop behind the house. It didn't cause any problems. It was sitting back off the road, and over the years, it has continued to spread down, and now it's in front of the residential. That lot immediately in front of the building is residential, is owned, and mother owns it. Do you think anyone's going to want to build a house there?